Our adventure begins with our hero by the Great Sea. Our adventurer looks at the Great Sea with great intent in his eyes. The adventurer looks down at the sea and wonders what could be below this great depth of ocean. The adventurer wonders to himself, what is the true meaning of the sea? What could be below that great surface? Can I go down there and adventure one time? The adventurer doesn't even think, but jumps in anyway. The adventurer dives deep into the great ocean and looks at the area surrounding it. The great adventurer sees the great area that's below the sea. The adventurer sees monsters that have a great deal of danger surrounding them, that bring a bad negativity to him. So the adventurer wanders off. The adventurer sees a great beast of the ocean, fish, and saw another great beast, the octopus. The adventurer sees such great beasts underwater as monsters. The adventurer then wanders back to land. Having seen all that, the adventurer sees that the great sea is welcoming, but punishing at the same time. The adventurer just happens to go and farm supplies. Maybe I should get wood. Maybe I should build my own civilization. I should have a house and a farm and such. The adventurer then sees wood and trees. The adventurer decides to go towards the trees and get some wood. Once arrived at the trees, the adventurer then sees how to get wood. The adventurer then gets wood from the trees. With wood intact, the adventurer has wood now. The adventurer then decides to make wood planks. With wood planks, the adventurer decides to craft some sticks. The adventurer then decides to make a wooden axe. With said axe, the adventurer will get more wood. Gee, all this wood really is going to help me in the great cause. I'm going to have a house, have a farm, have anything I could want, the adventurer said. And then the adventurer decides to make a sword for self-defense and a pickaxe for mining. The adventurer, still looking at the great woods, deciding to get more and more wood. The adventurer decides, I need to get more wood. With wood still intact, the adventurer decides to get more, as the wood would help with food, as it would be to cook things of this great nature. The adventurer then discovers that he has an apple. The adventurer looks at the majestic apple as if it was a great deal of nutrition. The adventurer then puts the apple away. The adventurer then crafts more oak wood planks. With more oak wood planks, the adventurer then decides to build a house. But when, do you ask? Not right now, but I'll build one, the adventurer said. The adventurer then picked up his crafting table and wandered off. The adventurer, still looking at more wood, realizing that there are great places to build a house. The adventurer then decides to take a great drink into the water. A dive into the water, if you will. The adventurer then decides to get back up and keep running. As the land took him, the land swallowed him whole. The adventurer then realized, this land is so majestic. The beautiful beasts surrounding it, the sheep, the wolves, the horses, even the mobs of this great world, the zombies, the creepers, everything, would then soon fall into play. The adventurer then realized that he needed to make a bed. So, without thinking of the great lives of the 3 sheep he just saw, he decides to run back at them, full speed. Sheep looking at him confused. The adventurer then decided to kill one sheep, the other sheep confused. The adventurer then kills the second sheep, then the last sheep running off. The adventurer, with great murder intent, then decides to kill the last and third sheep. The adventurer feeling very bad. The adventurer then sees a chicken. The adventurer then says, "No witnesses." Then kills the chicken. Then another chicken. "No witnesses." The adventurer then said again. But then the adventurer realized this was the true nature of this world. To kill, to eat, to survive, to thrive. That was the true nature of this land. The adventurer then runs into a great beast, a modern-day wolf. The adventurer looks at the wolf looks back. The adventurer then wants to pet the majestic wolf, but the adventurer is afraid that the wolf might bite, or try to hurt the adventurer. The adventurer then walks off, wondering how in the world this great land has such great beasts such as a wolf, sheep even. Then the adventurer just keeps on walking. The adventurer then sees the sea again. As the adventurer saw the great sea and the great terrain around it, the great adventurer wondered, do I want to go back down there? Should I risk it again? The adventurer said no. The adventurer then decides to craft. But what, you may be asking? The adventurer then decides to craft more wood. As the adventurer crafted more wood, he decided that I need to make a bed. So he made a bed with the sheep. The adventurer then decides on where to put his house. Should it be by the sea, to get a great view of the sea, to fish, to get great things from the sea, to be one with the sea? So he thought. The adventurer then looked at himself in the sea's reflection. The sea looking back at him. The sea opening their arms to him. With the sea opening up to the great adventurer himself, the adventurer then decided that it was final. He will build his house by the sea. With the adventurer feeling hungry for a journey and the adventurer being full on food, the adventurer then decides to build a house. As the adventurer built the house, the adventurer then fantasized about the true adventures he'd find in himself. New things he discovered about himself as he'd venture through the great sea. As he'd find things that were not exactly welcoming in the sea, as much as he'd find things that were welcoming into the sea itself. As the adventurer nearly did what could be a house he suspected, he then realized that the house is going to be perfect. No matter how it's built, no matter what shape. It'll be perfect, he said. The adventurer then almost put the final touch to Son's house, but not before realizing he had to put his bed somewhere. So, the adventurer placed his bed. And so forth, the adventurer went back into the great woods of this jungle and decided to get more wood. He got more wood into the great trees of this world. As he got the wood, he decided to finish off his house with said wood. But he needed doors so that anything that would be unwelcoming to him in this great land would try to invade his home, he could defend it the best way he could. So the adventurer then decided to get wood. He was like, okay, this is perfectly fine. This is the amount of wood I need. The adventurer then decides to go back to his home that he had built himself. Take the crafting table, place it, and then make more wood. With the adventurer intent of making the house perfect enough to where it could be satisfactory for him, the adventurer then decided to make a door. 2 doors, if you will. The adventurer then crafted the doors, then had the house set perfectly fine. The adventurer then made his house. But this was only the foundation. What's that? The adventurer then spots a unwelcoming zombie of this nation. The adventurer then attacks the zombie. The adventurer kills the mighty beast of the zombie. The adventurer then wondering and realizing that he killed a human, but not just any human, an undead human. But that undead human, he then realized that he killed another man. He was moved for this about a couple seconds, but then he realized that it was a terrible decision. But he knew he had no choice. Then the adventurer then heard another sound. He didn't think of it too much. He just kept building his house. As he almost had this house perfectly fine and built, he then realized that animals were surrounding this terrain, and so were evil spirits, mobs even. Great monsters that wanted to kill him no matter what happened. It didn't matter if they killed each other. No, they were just on one sole set purpose: to kill the adventurer. As the adventurer then scoped around his newly built house, almost complete, the adventurer then decided to be brave. He had to leave his house, lock the door. He had to get more wood, but not before realizing he had to bring out his sword. It was time to defend his home, to defend himself, to kill anything that would try to kill him, no matter what the cost. But then he realized there was one thing that would stop him: a creeper. He had to back up every time he attacked the great thing. He attacked again. The creeper almost blew up. Another strike, and then a final strike. The adventurer then realized that creepers are the most dangerous, as they can explode suddenly at any moment, any time, any given place. If it sees him, he just knows it's over, if he does even hear. The adventurer then gaped at himself. He'd imagined that he took in so much damage. He knew that this was the cost of fighting. He knew that eventually he'd have to fight he'd have to fight and fight until he couldn't fight anymore. The adventurer sees a arachnid, a spider. The adventurer decides whether or not to attack the beast, but without even thinking, the adventurer then decides to attack the arachnid spider. The adventurer attacked the spider without even thinking. The adventurer then hears bones crackling in the distance. The adventurer then wonders, what is that noise? The adventurer keeps going into the woods. The adventurer hopes that he would run into those dogs again that he ran into at the beginning. That, hey, maybe I'll run into an old friend, he chuckled to himself as he kept mining wood. As he got more wood, he heard another spider. Wondering if he'd have to defend himself even more than he anticipated, the adventurer then saw the beast again. He saw the spider and killed it. He killed the spider. He looked below and noticed that there was a great giant black monster that left a purple trail and had an intent in its eyes, to where as if you'd look at it, it would chase after him, and he knew this was a fact. He heard a weird noise, a language he couldn't understand. The adventurer was very afraid. The adventurer then decided to mosey on back to his home now, as it was time to go back home. The adventurer walking home now. The adventurer sees something in the distance, Something green and purple with a blue shirt. A zombie, perhaps? The adventurer sees a zombie and attacks it, as he knows he had to do so. He had to kill it, because if he didn't kill it, the zombie would have tried to made him a zombie too. The adventurer goes back home. He opens the door, closes the door. As the adventurer goes home, he now knows he can finish the house. As the adventurer pulls out his mighty axe. No, not his axe. He decides he doesn't need his axe. He puts it away. Grabs his wood. He finishes the house. As the adventurer finishes the house, he notices that this is just only the beginning of such a great adventure. An adventure so great that it could be done in multiple days. It didn't matter how many days it took. It just mattered on what happened. It wasn't about the destination of the journey, but otherwise, it just mattered what would really happen in this adventure. The adventurer stared at the stars in his house because he knew he couldn't look at them outside. He looked at the stars looked back at him, he thought. He looked up into the midnight sky and then realized this is going to be a perfect adventure. The adventure might take me, but I'm just going to keep fighting until it's my last day. When it's my last day hit, I have no idea. But one thing I do know is this. The adventure will lead me to different terrains, different places that even I have not seen yet. Places I dare not tread. But I have to for the adventure, for the hunt, for everything I believed in. The adventurer said. The adventurer finally looking at the moon coming down. The adventurer then realized it was time to go to bed. The adventurer then placed down his chest. But then he realized he had made two, so he had double chest. He then realized he didn't need much material, and he decided to just put it in the chest. The adventurer then put all his belongings into the chest. With every belonging he had into the chest, the adventurer looked outside one more time to see if it was safe, to see if it was a good idea to go to sleep, to see if it was perfectly fine. The adventurer then went to bed. The adventurer then went to sleep. A new day had begun. The adventurer then realized it was time to go. It was time to go out mining, to go out adventuring, and time to do anything any other adventurer would do. To cook food, to make a stove, to do something that would be productive. The adventurer then took the string he had from that spider he killed, and he decided to go out into the open world. With open arms, he thought. The adventurer then saw in the distance stone. As he saw the black beast again, he then realized he couldn't look at it. And if he did, he only remembered in his memory, jump in the water. The adventurer then walked over to the great gray things he saw into the mountains. He walked over to the mountains with his pickaxe out. The adventurer then knew that he had to go into the sea again. The adventurer then saw 3 beasts this time. 3 underground-looking zombies. He didn't know what they were, but the adventurer didn't want to find out. So the adventurer sped out of there quicker. He kept walking over to the great mountains he saw. He then realized that these mountains were going to be a great resource help for him. The adventurer then went over to the mountains with his pickaxe out. The adventurer then realized it was time to get to the better part of the picture. The adventurer said as he mined. As he mined, he realized that it was going to be so much better. It was going to be a great help to him, a great resource that he needed, a great time of need and effort. As the adventurer kept digging through his resources, he kept mining. He wouldn't stop. It didn't matter what he found. It just mattered that he got the one thing he came for, or more. As he got more of what he needed, he realized that he wasn't going to leave until he had perfectly everything he wanted. Trying not to sound like a person who wanted more than anything he could get, like a spoiled child who couldn't get what he wanted for his Christmas present. As the great adventurer kept digging through the concrete, or whatever, the stone he had thought, the adventurer kept going through the resources, and then he realized he'd have to fight the beast that was on his terrain, his land. The black, tall monster that was on his land. Could the adventurer do it? Could he pull it off a great succession without the beast taking his life as well? The adventurer wonders to himself as he keeps digging. The adventurer's pickaxe broke, but that didn't stop him. He went back to his house just to assemble another pickaxe. Could it be a time for an upgrade? The adventurer thought. The adventurer then thought to himself, the great beasts of the underworld could be waiting for him as well. If he were to die by this beast that was on his land, could those beasts of the underworld take him too? Would they welcome him with open arms and then crush him like a bear hug? The adventurer didn't want to find out. The adventurer wants to live. The adventurer wants to breathe. The adventurer wants everything that any adventurer could want for himself. The adventurer then walked into his house, and then he thought to himself, it's time for an upgrade. The adventurer then made a stove. Where to put the stove, the adventurer thought. He thought, why not put it over here? The adventurer put it over there, next to his door on the right. The adventurer then thought, it's time. It's time. The adventurer then made a pickaxe of stone, and then a sword of stone. As the adventurer did this, the adventurer then thought, maybe this is just not the beginning. Maybe I can make more ideas, more objects like this, more powerful tools such as this. As the adventurer thought that, the adventurer then walked over to the mountains again. As the adventurer ran over to the mountains, the adventurer then realized he had to do the exact same thing. He had to avoid the beast of the water biome. But then he realized he was being attacked by one. He was scared. He ran off because it felt weird. He couldn't fight for himself underwater, but he could fight on land. So he was hoping the beast would walk onto land. The beast wouldn't walk on the land as it confused him, which meant this was a weakness to the beast underwater. They couldn't walk onto the land, he thought. So he saw that as weakness and saw that as a great deal of pleasure to him. A great idea. To just avoid the sea, and if he gets into the sea, just go into land as possibly quickly as he could. The adventurer saw that in his mind. He thought that maybe this would be a great idea to just keep staying on to land for now until he could fight and have enough resources to fight the beast underwater. But then he realized the ocean was no place to joke around. He thought it was just an open face, a pretty face, he thought. But it was a pretty face with a deadly scent. He was tricked. He loved the ocean as much as he loved his mother. As the adventurer saw the ocean as what it really was, the ocean was just a mistress. A great mistress. A adventure waiting to be had underwater, the adventurer thought. The adventurer then saw that he had to do this right. He had to get it. He had to farm his resources. He had to do what was done. The adventurer then saw coal and then decided to mine it. As the adventurer mined the coal, he then realized it could probably go to a stove. He could cook what he wanted to cook. He could cook all his rotten meat. And as he thought this, he said, I'm gonna eat good tonight. As the adventurer said that, his thoughts then carried on again, as the great paranoia started to reach deep inside of him. The paranoia started to get to him. He was wondering if he should go back home. The curiosity of the adventurer got the best of him, and he decided to go back home. Heading back home, the adventurer then thought he should start fishing. The adventurer then realized he needed another string to start fishing. As the adventurer knew this, he was well aware of this, he decided to go back home. As the adventurer headed home, he realized and remembered that the beast was no longer there. A great intuition went over the beast. The beast probably ran, but the beast just didn't want to fight. The beast was probably looking for peace. As the adventurer probably realizes this, he decides to cook his food, but not before having a snack. An apple, he thought, a harmless little snack. It was no threat to him as he ate the apples. The adventurer then decided to go back into the world, but he was only looking for one thing: string. But the only way he knew how to get string was killing a spider. The adventurer then heard a spider. He then was confused. Where was this cry coming from? This cry of pain and agony. He then decided to dig down. The adventurer thought twice to do so. The adventurer then decided to leave that hole there, as it would be helpful later, as a trap, as a warning. The adventurer then decided to open his arms to the world again, and decided to keep walking through the world. The adventurer then realizes there were wolves somewhere. He thought to himself, where can I find them again? Where will I find them? The adventurer then decides to take a step further into the darkness. The adventurer then decided to take a step where he wouldn't dare step. So the adventurer decided to do something risky and decided to eat something he would never eat: a zombie's rotten flesh. The adventurer thought to himself, he's a cannibal. I'm a cannibal now. This is how we live. We have to do what we have to do. The adventurer then saw two monsters. The monsters then looked at him, one of them chasing after him. The adventurer then thought, oh crap. As he saw the monster chasing after him, he then decided to back very far away. The monster is still pursuing him. The monster wanting a taste of blood. The adventurer then decided to fight back. The adventurer then decided to fight, and he wouldn't stop fighting until the monster died or went away. The monster wouldn't run away, so the adventurer then decided to keep going. He kept pursuing his dream, to get stronger, to get more powerful, to defend himself in every aspect, to adventure the world that no man would adventure. As he said this to himself, his goals reached their peak. He'd found iron, and he was very excited. As he was excited to find this new achievement in the world, he then decided to go back home, as it was another day. The adventurer then saw another black creature. The creature didn't look at him, he didn't look at the creature. The creature didn't show interest, but then the adventurer saw zombies. More and more of them. They were chasing him home. The adventurer didn't think much of it, but the adventurer knew he had to fight for himself. But then he saw his great achievement, the one thing he wanted the whole day, a spider, and he got strength from it. The adventurer then ran home, closed the door out of fear, and wanted to go to sleep, but he knew he couldn't. So the adventurer then thought to himself he couldn't do anything. The adventurer then knew he could make iron, but what would he make out of the iron? He didn't know, so he left it alone for now. But then the adventurer remembered he wanted to eat good. As the adventurer put his belongings into the chest, he knew that this was just the beginning. A second day, another time, he knew this was going to be the day. Another day, he was going to be out there. He was going to explore the world. He was going to be the one and only. He was going to be the greatest one alive. The greatest adventurer anybody has ever been. As the adventurer looked outside, he then saw every beast out there. He didn't see not one beast anymore. He thought they were still out there. They were going to chase him. They were going to kill him. That they were going to try or attempt it. But then the adventurer knew this was only just going to get worse. Every day was going to get worse and worse. For every day, they were going to eat him. They were going to make him fear his aspects. As the adventurer thought this, the adventurer put his belongings into his chest again. As it was time to go to bed again. And then the adventurer thought, these days are going to get a lot more hectic. I'm by the ocean. The ocean welcomes me, but it harms me at the same time. It loves me and hates me. The ocean might not accept me the next time I go into it. I might not make it out. The adventurer feared and thought to himself. The adventurer then went to bed. And that is the end of this video. If you guys like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, as it helps my content out a lot. And I hope you guys like this video.